On just about everyone's driveway journey, from their first keys to their dream driveways, chances are you are going to experience one of the kind of core car brands out there: BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. If you've watched my videos for long enough, you know that I've now owned 3 BMWs. I've owned a BMW M2 40i, I owned a BMW M2 in a dual clutch transmission, and then I own this BMW M2 in a manual transmission. What is it about BMW that made me buy 3 of them? And why did I want one in the first place? 2021 is when I bought my M2 40i, my first BMW. It was black with red interior, and I ended up just blacking the whole thing out. I got black tints, black wheels, just all black everything with the red interior. And I love that car. But why did I even buy it in the first place? I saw it on social media, and not specifically that car, but I saw a lot of black BMWs on social media. Because at the time, the big, kind of meta aesthetic on Instagram when it came to BMWs was that kind of like low-key, blacked out mafia look that they all have, moving in their convoys with the G-Wagons behind them. And you guys know that whole vibe and aesthetic I'm talking about. I saw that and I'm like, damn, that is what it's all about. So I'm like, you know what? I kind of want a BMW. And I had a friend who had a cousin, friend with a friend with a friend kind of a thing. He had a BMW that he just bought, brand spanking new, a BMW M3 40i. So I went for a ride in the M3 40i. That car is a monster. The M3 40i is a really, really good car. So I started looking at prices because I'm like, damn, this has me sold on BMW. I need one of these cars. And then I saw the price and I'm like, yeah, that price is not happening, because at the time they were going for like still $70,000, $80,000. They were still really, really expensive. They've since come down a lot, but that's what they were. So I'm like, okay, what other car can I get in that same kind of vibe, that same sportiness, but for much cheaper? And I had another relative that has a 228i, and I love the aesthetic of the 2 Series. I love the 228i. I loved how it looks. I'm like, this is perfect. Like, it's a tiny, compact car. I like smaller cars. I generally don't like these big behemoth saloons. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me see if there's anything in the 2 Series. So I look and I see an M2 35i, and I'm like, wow, that is the car. So I started watching videos, and ultimately I settled on an M2 35i. I'm like, this is perfect. This is the car I need to buy. Now, the M2 35i at the time was going for about $30,000. So I was trying so hard to find one, and I just couldn't find one for the life of me, like anywhere remotely near me. I found an M2 40i in exactly what I was looking for $30,000, when they were going for about $35,000 to $38,000. So I'm like, perfect. So I went, I checked out the car, I drove all the way down to Maryland, I picked that car up, I drove it back after I bought it, because I love the car, bought it then and there. Everything was good with the car. That car was phenomenal. I've had like no issues during the ownership of my M2 40i. Phenomenal purchase. It was everything I wanted it to be. I got those black vibes. It just looked menacing. Loved it. Everything I wanted out of that car, I got out of that car. Then I decided, with my brilliant, impulsive mind, to go window shopping online for M2s. I'm like, you know what? I really want an M2. Like, the M2 40i is nice, but like, an M2. Now let's take a look. Let's just take a gander. And it just so happened by sheer coincidence, that the BMW dealership that's about 15 minutes from my house had an M2 for sale in the price point that I was looking for. And the rest was history. I drove the M2, and I'm like, oh man, I like this car. It's a nice car, but let me think on it. So I went home, I thought about it, I'm like, I texted the guy back. I'm like, dude, can I come back? Can I drive it one more time? Let me just have one more test drive in. He's like, yeah, no problem, come back. So I came back, I drove it. I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's buy the M2. So I bought the M2, and it was a dual clutch transmission. It was really, really fun. I really enjoyed that car for all of 1 month before I totaled the M2. So then, now I have a big void in my life, because I don't have a fun sports car anymore. Because once you get a sports car, it is very difficult to go from having a sports car to not having a sports car. It is a very difficult thing to do. So I'm like, all right, let's start looking. Like, what do we want? What do we want to do? I feel like my time with the M2 came to an abrupt end, and I did not get to experience all of the BMW M2 that I wanted to experience. Let me go and buy another M2. So that's exactly what I did. So after hunting for months of trying to buy a M3 or an M4 in very specific specs that I could not for the life of me find in good condition, I bought another M2. But this time, I decided I was going to buy a manual. This is the first manual I've ever owned. And for all intents and purposes, I learned how to drive manual on this BMW M2. Because before this car, I've driven manual like once or twice, like 8 years prior. I just didn't really have the experience with the manual transmission. But I'm like, you know what? I want one. These things are a dying breed. I gotta experience it. A lot of people rave about having an M2 in manual. Let me try it out. It's a perfect opportunity, and that's what I did, and I love it. So that brings us to today. So that is really how I got into BMW and how I went on the whole path of BMW ownership. My M240i was phenomenal. I loved that car, and part of me regrets getting rid of it just because it's such a good car. I don't regret trading it in for the M2 because I do love the M2 more, but I do regret just getting rid of it in general because it is, in general, a really, really good car. It's a really good luxury car. The first M2 was awesome for the month that I had it. It had no issues. It was a bit more higher of a mileage car. I got it just before it hit 70,000 miles, and it had really no issues with it. So that car ran really well. This car I bought at 58,000, and it currently has 75,000. I've had a couple issues with this car, but nothing too major. Most of the issues that this car has had have either been just like stupid problems that really weren't expensive to fix, that took me a long time to diagnose what the issue was, and then just stupid things that were my fault. But besides that, these have been phenomenal to own. I would highly recommend trying a BMW at some point in your life, like a proper BMW. Try them out because they're phenomenal cars and I absolutely love them. The BMW M2's time is slowly drawing to an end. I'm really debating what car to buy after this because I'm buying a house next year. So that's going to take up a lot of funds. It's going to be very chaotic with funding and all that kind of stuff. So the car is going to have to wait for a little while. The next car, most likely, for those of you that have watched my videos before, I've teased this before, but the next car after the BMW M2 is probably going to be an Aston Martin V8 Vantage. That is the next car. Something very different, something very special, an entry-level exotic. It's not quite a supercar. It doesn't really bridge the gap all the way to supercar. It's like the entry-level supercar that, like, yeah, some people may call it that, but is it really? Not really, kind of. Regardless, it's a fun British exotic. It's very elegant, and really it's different. It mirrors the kind of stage in my life where I'm trying to be at the moment. Whereas the early stages with the black BMW, like in my early 20s, like different vibe compared to the M2, a little bit more enthusiast. And now I'm looking at the Aston Martin, which is a little bit more sophisticated, tries to be a little bit more elegant, and it's just a completely different mentality with that car, I guess you can say. It's a different aura or vibe, as the kids say nowadays. So that's probably what's coming next. So let me know what you guys think of my fun BMW journey. Let me know what journey you guys have had with your cars. If you've went through one brand for multiple cars like I did with BMW, let me know. But that's really what it's all about, the driveway journey from our first keys to our dream driveways. So if that's something that resonates with you guys, make sure you guys also check out my website, drivewayjourney.com. Currently I'm selling some shirts, hats, stuff like that, so we can all kind of be encouraged to tell our stories, to tell our journeys from our first keys to our dream driveways. Besides that, give it a like, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching on Driveway Journey. Until next time.